Hello and welcome to the Bacon Bites. My name is Seth Bacon, and on this episode of the Bacon Bites podcast, Jamie Barker and I discuss the Power Platform. What is Power BI? What's Power Apps? And what is Flow? And on this episode, we dive into that as well as a little history of our business applications and where we came from. So let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Bacon Bites. My name's Seth Bacon, and Jamie and I we're just talking about just the different business applications that we've interacted with sort of in our business careers and how we've seen them evolve. And it was interesting. Jamie, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you saw sort of when you started looking at business applications and your interaction with them? I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, so it sounds like it was a long time ago, but it wasn't too long. So I'm not that old. But I remember when I first walked into an office and started using this green screen application, I thought, what on earth is this? It was didn't even have a mouse control. It was sort of tab and shortcut keys and everything like that. And they also I had the pleasure of using Domino Designer, which was
Never
glorious.
heard of that one.
It's like Lotus Notes, I believe. Domino Designer.
Okay.
Whether it's still going or not, I don't know. But yeah, stuff like that and good old Excel and pen and paper was kind of the tried and trusted method. What about yourself, Seth? What have you been exposed to?
Yeah, I've not been exposed to the dominoes, and I came after sort of the green screen, and my first foray into the business applications and what that looks like is an Access database. And so it was neat. And like sort of in school, even though my background was accounting, they were having us do creating Access databases and that relational databases. And it was cool being able to essentially it was from an accounting perspective, it was like Excel on steroids, right? So it's these tables and you can relate these tables together. And so that was really cool. But that was sort of my first foray into business applications. I want to go back to sort of this green screen and no mouse. Was that like prior to Microsoft being invented, or like how do you navigate without a mouse?
I'm not even 40. Come on.
You just looked sooner than I did.
Yeah. No. I think it was just old technology. They didn't bother upgrading with anything. So when it was just with keyboard. So everyone thought it was really quick, but the problem was it was only quick if you know all the shortcuts. So you type some weird long sort of key sequence, and you'll get to the screen you wanted to. But on day one, you just couldn't use it. It was a nightmare.
Yeah. So did you have like training on? You have to have training to know that you go to. It sounds like you're in like a computer BIOS almost.
No, it's nothing glorious like that. It was just it was an actual application that people use day to day. I was an end user at the time, so kind of got introduced, and you had this sort of Bible that had all the shortcuts in that you dare not lose, and you try and memorize. I remember when we upgraded to a GUI, so a graphical user interface, and people had to use a mouse for the first time to engage with the application, and yeah, it was almost a revolt because it was slower, but because everyone knew all the shortcuts. But for new people coming in, it was great. So,
yeah. And so with what industry was that in?
That was for a housing association. So
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have that over in the States, but
yeah, we have like homeowners associations and stuff like that for different neighborhoods and whatnot.
Yeah, so more social housing. So
okay.
Yeah, they don't own their homes. It's sort of social rented accommodation, I guess.
Oh, okay. Very nice. And so it's sort of government or non-profit?
Yes, not-for-profit, local authority, government, yeah, that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah, and that tends to be not bleeding edge when it comes to technology.
No, they're more of a tried and trusted, but they're getting better.
Nice. Yeah, and so it's interesting. So when did you go? So you went to your first user interface, and so that was a big change. And what came after that for you? I feel like I'm in Access, and you're still back on the green screen. So when we catch up, let me know.
Yeah, no. We a couple didn't even get Access. Unlike you, Seth, I didn't get to play on Access.
Okay, so we went from that to what was your next one? Was it the Lotus Notes and Dominoes you mentioned?
Yeah, so we had Lotus Notes, so kind of a little bit of creating databases within Domino Designer, and that was kind of trial by error sort of thing, as you do. And then we just sort of progressed till eventually we hit Dynamics. And that was what 2013. Yeah. So
okay. Nice. And what? So that first experience with Dynamics, coming off of sort of those different business applications, what was that like?
Yeah, that was actually an amazing transition, from being able to sort of create all the entities and fields you wanted without having to go back to a developer or anything like that. It was kind of like where I decided actually I really want to work in Dynamics, and that's kind of where I made the jump, to working full time into Dynamics.
Nice.
Just such a transformational application.
Yeah, and then from an end user perspective, it was interesting because I saw it from sort of that access, and you're right on the back end when I don't have to create the different columns and being able to tie things together and then throw them on a form. I can sort of do it from the user interface and quickly create a new field, and all of a sudden it's on the back end. It was crazy because I felt like it still was sort of accessy, and you don't think it's a super big business application, but it's like an enterprise level application. And so um, as far as the users, when we converted sort of from an internal web based system to Dynamics, the users enjoyed it a lot more. It was a lot more like what they were used to with Office and Word. And so, from a business application, specifically on a relational database and a contact management system, it was a big change. And so, I don't know um, if you helped another company go from that Domino system to Dynamics, or if it was something else. Just sort of that difference between using a mouse almost was a big difference, and we kind of saw that going from a personally designed website to an enterprise level one.
Yeah, and I think I think the transition you need to be aware of, when you're bringing users along from what they know. But yeah, what from going from saying actually, you know what, we can't make that change to yeah, we can make that. That'll be out in a couple of weeks for you. Um, it was great, and I think with the Power Platform or the Power Apps as it is now, um, the pace of change can only increase. I think.
Yeah, and I think that's where kind of this history lesson started from, was when we were talking about Power Apps on last time. It was just something that we got both really excited about because it feels like another evolution of a business application where we went from the green screen to Domino um, to access to be in that relational database that was fairly easy to configure to dynamic CRM, and which is a fully enterprise database that's easily a lot more easily configured. Somebody from an accounting background could do it. And now we're going into this Power Platform. So, for those that may not have heard of the Power Platform, what's sort of included in that, Jamie, and how do you approach that conversation with people that are unfamiliar with it?
So to me, the Power Platform represents a few of the technologies from the Microsoft stack. So you've got obviously got Power Apps, and you've got a common data service, which is Dynamics under the hood, um, really, and then you've got sort of Power BI to sort of visualize all the data, and then you've got Flow that can connect the data from various different sources. Doesn't have to be just Dynamics or CDS or even the Office 365. It could be third party solutions like Salesforce or Box or anything like that. So to me, that's where what the Power Platform is. Yourself,
It's crazy. I think it's exactly what you talked about, and I think this is where I feel like, or we feel like, it's the next evolution of this product, or not just the product, but business applications in general. Right? You referenced some of the green screen stuff, but before that, the business application was a piece of paper and a form, right? And so now it's no longer what information do I have in an Excel file or on this form or on this database. Even now, we're going in across databases, and so I know Microsoft's worked with I think it's Adobe, and is it Oracle or SAP that they also made an agreement with, or sort of an understanding that, hey, we're going to all sort of start having commonality across things.
yeah, is that the open
Go ahead.
source initiative?
Yeah,
It's SAP. Could be wrong.
right, which is crazy because now it's these big applications. So if you can imagine, somebody can be using these power tools, power platform tools. With Flow, I can bring over information, or with Power Apps, I can now tap into those other databases and be able to communicate with them. And so it's no longer, again, sort of siloed. We now can use sort of a best of breeds concept when it comes to tool sets. And then being able to use these tools in the back end to either aggregate the data with Power BI, to move data, almost like an ETL tool with Power or with Flow. It's funny they don't have it Power Flow, but I think somebody already had that trademarked or something.
Give it a couple of months, it'll be Powerflow.
Just wait, they'll
Yeah.
rebrand everything. And then apps being able to interact with it. And so I think it'll be neat because you're tearing down these barriers. And I think that's the biggest change. And it's just mind blowing because you're no longer looking at what do I have currently? It's what's out there. Have you connected to anything besides Dynamics yet, or the opportunity to look at some of those other connectors?
I've not actually. I have actually. I've connected. I've used Flow to connect to some Google services. Don't
Nice.
about that on this podcast. But I've also used SharePoint and Twilio, which is always quite a common one for sending
Yep.
text messages. Nice and simple, very quick and easy. CDS and traditional Office sort of within the Microsoft stack. So not
Right.
outside. So I'm quite focused on the Microsoft stack, but the prospect is there.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I've seen the connectors, and I think there's 50 or so plus,
It's
and they're always
200
coming out
plus
with
now.
new ones. Is there 100 already?
200
Holy
plus.
cow! 200.
Yeah.
I'm way behind on this.
When was the last time you looked? No, it just grows.
Maybe 6 months.
Yeah, it is just it just keeps growing and growing. It's fantastic
Yeah,
what Microsoft are doing with it.
and I think that's the crazy thing is because you and I both do implementations, and so we're helping drive some of these conversations with clients and their digital transformation, which is a conversation that everybody's very interested in and has been interested since the 90s. It's all about digital transformation, then it was getting into the cloud. Um, but often we're trying to lead these conversations, or Microsoft's trying to bring awareness to these new tools. And it's interesting because it's something that we have to educate the clients on, right? And so often they say, "Hey, I want a content management system." Awesome, but now, and maybe we'll send or integrate with Twitter or something like that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And so Microsoft had tools for that, but now it's sort of like, hey, I want to send a tweet out if something comes in. I want to automatically send a tweet out. I want it to integrate with a number of different systems. And so some clients I've run into, or prospects, people looking for a system, they're like, no, just do content management. I still want that Rolodex. Whereas, hey, not only can you have marketing and case management all in one system like Dynamics used to be, but that system could be any system, and we can bring all that information together. So either, again, you can report on it, or you can move data across, or you can visualize it. And I think that was, what was it, last week? A Canvas app was embedded in Dynamics or something like that. Did you get a chance to see
Yes.
that?
Yeah. So that's the contextual um, power contextual power apps. Is that what you're referencing to?
I think so. Yeah, it
Yeah.
looked like Dynamics, but it felt like Power Apps.
Yeah. So I think they're just rolling out in preview at the moment. But you can actually do that now. It's not in context though. You can embed a power app using a HTML web resource. If you're that eager and you can't wait for the preview, but it's not in context. So if you're looking at ABC Limited, the Power App will sort of take that data from ABC Limited, so it'll be aware of what record it's actually been surfaced in, and then you can sort of take fields or data from the customer engagement form into Power Apps and fire off your processes or mash it together with other data sources. So it's really powerful.
Because I mean, you can use that for the sales side if somebody's using it for sales management, or case side if they want to bring something in from um, again from SAP potentially, even not even just Dynamics like a F&O or finance and operations or Business Central. You're going across ecosystems at that point, which is, I mean, where's the limit at that point?
Yeah, I think that's something that's got to be controlled. I think no, you can't just say, oh no, that's gonna take a long time, or oh that's not possible. It's kind of opened up more avenues to explore, which brings its own challenges, but it's exciting to think
Yeah.
what you can do and how you can deliver it.
What does it look like for so taking sort of a half step back, and just talking about sort of the individual tools, because I think we've touched on them a little, but Power Apps has been out for for how long? Or Power BI, excuse me. It's been out.
So Power BI has been around for quite a while. That was kind of 2014, 2015.
Yeah, because it
Not that
came out
long,
in
is it?
Excel. I remember,
Yeah.
and I feel like they were like testing the waters.
Yeah. So I actually used Power BI when we rolled out Dynamics. When I first rolled out Dynamics where I used to work, and I was on the sort of the client side, as it were. We actually used Power BI to measure user interaction, so how many records they were creating and stuff. Sort of a precursor to organizational insights. I can't take credit for organizational insights, but it was kind of like we used Power BI for that, but it wasn't a complete package. We downloaded like Advanced Find. We used it to visualize our reports. So that's what we used it for. But it's matured so much, and I think it's kind of, if you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, it's kind of like the number one tool now, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's comparable to what Tableau is the other one that everybody talks about and uses.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's might be even ahead of Tableau. Depends on what
Wow.
Magic Quadrant you see. So the pace of innovation within Power BI is phenomenal, especially with sort of Power Query and it hooking up to the Power Platform now with the common data service for analytics. Yeah, it's only just going to.
Okay. So, two things I want to talk about Power BI specifically on is one, back when I was doing it, because I think I saw it when it first came out when it was still in Excel before they had like a desktop app like they do now.
Mhm.
It was you can connect to almost any database, and so the first time we looked at it, we were we had a store that was focused on low income areas, and so they said, "Hey, that's one of the things we want to analyze." And there's actually websites out there that um, help pull, and it's common information, right? And so people have created endpoints that you can connect to and bring that information in based on zip codes, and then they could overlay that with their sales data out of Dynamics. And so that was sort of those two different things. And so I think it's crazy with Power BI again that you're able to just point it at something that's open source. When it comes to data, again, you should trust your data and all that kind of stuff, and but you're able to query that data and then bring it in and to visualize it against your own data, which I thought was super cool.
Yeah, the ability to
Um,
mash up data from various sources it is great. I think it's fantastic. Like you say, you can have reference data sources that are maybe government owned and maintained that you don't have to worry about. You can just pull it in and sort of overlay your data and see the trends.
yeah, the other one that we had a conversation about, but I don't know if they ever took the time and to go into it, but it was housing markets and stuff like that. And so being able to see which housing is specifically around apartments, um, and the information there. So again, there's different organizations and associations that have databases for these are all the different housing complexes in a state. And so if you're focused in on that state, you can subscribe to that and get that information. So I think they ended up bringing all that data into Dynamics, but if the whole goal was just to see what that information is and how does that compare, and how should we pursue different zip codes and stuff like that, then that can be done without having to do an integration of the tool,
Mm.
and just by using Power BI. And so I think it's an interesting sort of it expands it out, right? That concept of not just the data that I've created or owned, but being able to leverage or subscribe to another data source, which is powerful. And again, I think this is where Facebook gets all sorts of trouble because they they then go off and sell information, and we won't get into that today. But um, there is capabilities and companies that specialize in data, and so being able to leverage that. Yeah. Anything else with sort of Power BI for those that maybe haven't been exposed to it or haven't seen it recently?
I read like the rest of the Power Platform. It has a lot of out of the box connectors that help you get ready. So it's always worth it exploring those when you start. Um, so yeah, always do that. And if you really want to learn Power BI, I always tend to hit up edX, see what free courses they've got on there. So you just Google edX Power BI, you'll get a free course and you can get up and running pretty easily. I think Power is one of
Okay.
the things kind of dropped the ball on a little bit, and I need to go and sort of get certified and get up to speed on Power BI.
You're going to be doing a lot this holiday season.
Ah, don't. As yours the next one.
And then we'll put that down in the show notes so that way people can find that fairly easily. And then we get into do you want to do Flow first or Power Apps? And this is where I quickly get out of my waters because I haven't had a chance to really play with either.
Um, yeah, let's do flow. Let's go with the flow, as they say.
Like it.
Yeah, so flows flows is essentially Microsoft's cloud enabled workflow engine. So it's a fantastic way to sort of kick processes off, or I use the term lightly move data between various platforms within the cloud. If you want full integration, you might want something a bit more robust.
So one of the things you mentioned, Jamie, right there was the fact that it's a light integrator versus like a heavy integrator. Is that the other option, a heavy integrator?
Yeah, I'd only use it for light integration personally, if that. I don't think it's robust enough yet, and plus it's done on consumption, so you get a number of flow runs per user, even though it's pulled across all your user base. Using it for integration, you might find you run out of it quite quickly, and plus you can't really control, how often or how quickly it runs. So I think it's asynchronous at the moment,
Interesting.
so you can't make it synchronous. So kind of flow will
Okay.
do it as and when it feels like doing it. Something like Logic apps, you've got a lot more control over that, and it's a lot more robust.
Yeah, I can imagine somebody that's in the sales department says, "Hey, I updated this. Why didn't this order go over or something like that?" I told them it was going to go out right away. I know there's a number of different things that you need it to happen immediately. So yeah, that's a huge, not a huge drawback, but it's something when you're designing and architecting, certainly to be considerate. I think the other one that you mentioned there was that it's based on consumption, which is an interesting sort of model because I think the other tools I've seen used are like Scribes and Kingsway Soft, and they both are. I think you just purchase them either as a subscription or you purchase them outright, um, perpetual license. So it's a change, and again in design, I think the way I would approach it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the nice things Flow does do is I've had it myself where Flow's stopped working, and after a while, it kind of emails you to say this Flow's broken. It took a little while for it to for that email to kick in. So, but you can also review all the Flow runs as well, and sort of see where the failures are, and you can sort of it has a built-in Power BI dashboard, so you can see sort of how the Flow's performing. So there are some bits there, and I think it is coming. It just needs a bit more maturity around it.
Yeah. So would you recommend this for somebody? Who would you recommend this for? And again, I want to put a disclaimer in here. We don't know your environments. We don't know your situations. This is very much um, just people, some guys talking and stuff like that. But where do you see this as an opportunity for people that are interested in leveraging flow? Are there certain things that you'd say, yep, that's the direction I would head, or maybe stay away from it?
So anything lightweight that you're not going to be doing masses of at the moment, and that's not sort of mission critical. I mean, I use it for personal things. Like I've got flows running that tell me when there's a new Power Apps blog. I get a notification on my phone, or you know, if someone uploads a document somewhere and I want in a certain folder and I want to know about it, then I can send a notification to my phone again. So it's quite good. It's quite good for that sort of thing. But on a large enterprise scale project, you probably want to do a fair bit of testing before you're convinced it's going to work.
Okay. It's interesting that you described personal use there. Is this designed for people to create themselves, or is this something that's the IT department creating in the back end for us?
So Flow is very much a what's the term? A citizen developer tool. It's really
Mm,
powerful. Don't get me wrong. That's probably undermining it a little bit, but you can tell it's a citizen developer tool because if you've got an Outlook.com email address, I think you get Flow there, and and anyone who IT allow you, you can create your own flows. It's just a drag and drop interface. It's quite nice to use. So yeah, I think it's anyone can use it.
yeah. It'll be interesting. I had a conversation with Gus Gonzalez and Nick Dolman just around what it looks like for sort of the next generation
Mm.
of business applications individuals. And And with the little bacon bite, growing up right now, it's interesting thinking about the different types of jobs he'll have and what I know kids are already learning in STEM schools and stuff like that. They're learning coding. There's games around coding. You get the Codapillar, so you can code a caterpillar and it's going to go around and do different things. And so it's interesting what the next generation, especially I think it's the millennials that are coming out that were just part of that, and so they're just used to that concept um, of code being a part of it, and so they can write it themselves. And so I think the citizen developer is something that's going to be a very big thing in the next generation of business applications as we're looking forward to sort of that evolution. And it's interesting that Microsoft's sort of preempting that and creating those tools that if you understand a little bit of code, then you can be a citizen developer and create your own stuff, and that's going to have a huge impact on the IT department as they start to try to manage it. I think
Yeah,
so.
and
It'll be interesting.
I think Microsoft done a great job here. Actually, this is not going to be a sort of another access scenario where you've got all these databases that are out of control of the IT department. Because because the backbone is Azure, um, the IT department can have visibility of what flows are sort of have been created and running. They've got all sorts of security controls about you can sort of authorize data sources, deauthorize data sources, and all that sort of great stuff. I think I saw the other day on Flow that there's some flows to return all the Power Apps and all the flows within your organization and all the owners and stuff like that. So you can go chasing them down. And ultimately, at the end of the day, because it's managed via Office 365, you can switch off the privilege if you're scared, and just control the rollout of it. So yeah, it's not
Yeah.
an access doomsday scenario.
Yeah, because I'm sure you've never run into that case. And slash, I'm going to ask you the last time you ran into this when you were going through an implementation, and they're like, "Well, what we actually want is you to reproduce this Excel file that we've been using for 5 years that Janice created 5 years ago because she was trying to automate something. Now it's a crucial part of our business workflow." And so,
Yeah, that makes me shudder a little bit. I don't like Excel. Uh, it hasn't got enough control around it for me. And yeah, I'm scared of macros on them. But yeah, that's still a good scenario. I think they should all move to CDS.
I had to talk about was the Power Apps. So again, I'll give my introduction to Power Apps because it's about an inch deep, and I know you have a lot more things that you've been working with those Dynamics guys on. But my sort of the only thing that I've done with the Power App is we had a putt putt in the office, raising money, charity type of event. And I thought it'd be cool to create a Power App that allowed us to keep track of scores. And so as each person went to the hole, they could log in and go ahead and record their score. And we had a leadership board in the application as well. And that's the one Power App that I've created. So,
Oh,
um,
okay, doing well. It's good.
yeah. So jumped in with both feet. So, what about you? I know you're working with, I think it's those Dynamics guys, and I see that they have all sorts of stuff they're publishing all the time. What has been your experience with Power Apps, and sort of where do they fit into this new paradigm with business applications?
Yeah, so with Power Apps, you've got two versions. So a lot of people are focusing on the Canvas apps, which is kind of like the Excel meets PowerPoint, uh, and so you've got a canvas which you can drag and drop sort of icons or graphics onto, and then you can write Excel like syntax to sort of do calculations and formulas and all that good stuff. A lot of people focus on Canvas apps, which are fantastic, and I've created a couple myself. But there's also the model-driven apps, which some people kind of neglect a little bit. That's kind of where my passion is because that's kind of the traditional Dynamics 365 customer engagement piece. So model driven applications that use the sort of the unified user interface form or UUI, or whatever it's called now, and you can still got all the richness of business process flows and calculated fields and roll up fields and all that stuff. So Power Apps is a rich tapestry of kind of a lot of stuff you can do with it. My experience so far is, we've deployed it with a client, and we're currently working with a client on another Power App to resolve an issue. It is a spreadsheet challenge, but I think that's kind of what Power Apps is good at, is resolving sort of the Canvas apps in particular. Sorry, that simple use case. Anything more complex, that's where the model-driven apps come in. I've yet to create a really sort of complex Canvas app that's got the complexity of a model-driven app.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because when I was doing it at the time, I don't think I knew there was a difference between a Canvas and a model-driven app. And so I think you said the model was on the common data model. Is that where
Yeah,
it's being driven off?
yeah. So it works off CDS2. I
Okay.
think we're on that. So yeah, you've still got all the richness of what was Dynamics customer engagement.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast that we can get into, is what the heck happened under the hood. Because on the surface, they went from one interface to now a unified interface, and in the back end, it was a whole another story that's going on. But
Yeah, they're kind of decoupling everything, aren't they? So,
yeah,
which is
well,
great.
yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And so, sort of two questions. One of them, I saw, I think it was Charles on your team, was working over the holidays because you're a slave laborer. I'll edit that out.
That's
But
fine.
I saw that he was working over the holidays and he created something that's got a lot of great traction, a lot of good feedback on LinkedIn. And so was that Canvas driven, model driven? Was he just doing it for fun?
So that's a Canvas driven app. So sort of I was took a challenge from a client I've been working on. Kind of spoke to Charles about, let's do this in a Canvas app. This is how this is kind of what we need to be aiming for. And then Charles, bless him, he's a Power Apps whiz. He decided to build it on his day off and got the inevitable WhatsApp when we started having a chat. Oh, actually, have you thought about doing this? Oh, yeah, I'll just do that now. So yeah, so it's looking really nice. I've not had a look at it. I'll log in and take a look. But
Yeah.
um,
And it's doing what's the action it's trying to perform?
so it's basically replicating a timesheet entry. So everyone loves a timesheet. So just trying to make it as simple as possible. So the the first the first sort of wave of it really is a desktop application where you can log your time, book lunch time, look at book and leave, and then we've got a flow for flow approval to the manager who can then authorize the leave, and then that creates a calendar appointment in your Outlook calendar. But then obviously you need to think, well, not everyone's at their desktop, so we could probably create a mobile app version of it as well with a subset
Nice.
of functionality.
And
So
where's that all getting written back to? What I mean, again, I feel like there's always something retaining. Is it an Excel file? Is it a database? Is it
yeah, because it's timesheets and it can be quite sensitive, we thought we'd just do it in CDS.
okay?
It can work just as well within SharePoint list or something like that.
So the other thing I wanted to touch on is this whole I think it's the Dynamics guys or the Dynamics group, or now they abbreviated to something.
TDG.
TDG. Yeah,
Those
that
Dynamics
rolls right
guys.
off the tongue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a fantastic community. So if anyone wants to get to know Power Apps, have a play, then there's a Power Bank. The community was originally set up by Will Dorrington, Chris Huntingford, and Kyle Hill, and it's just kind of exploded. It's sort of with lots of people, lots of community leaders all coming together to create blogs, help each other out, and it's really a great place to sort of get up to speed with Power Apps and get learning. And Microsoft
And
have actually started taking a real good interest in the work that's being done there. So all the guys are doing some fantastic work.
that's great. And is that an international thing? Is that something specific to the UK?
No, it's international, so there's community leaders all over the world.
Oh wow.
So yeah, you should get involved, Seth.
Well, I think I just exposed how much I know about it, so I don't mind
No,
listening. And
it's great if you've got an interest. If you're interested and passionate, then yeah, that's kind of people they're like. So
okay,
again, I think we can post the website on the show notes. So I think it's
yep,
dynamic365society.uk.
there you go. Cool. So we'll include that in there. And so the power bank is just like it's what I take on travel, right? So I can charge my phone, and when it like powers down, that's the power bank.
Kind of, no, not at all. It's just a free store where people do some community projects with Power Apps and they upload them, and then it's free to sort of sign up and download the app, and you can actually sort of download it into your environment and then sort of take it apart and look at how it works. So that's why it's great place to learn.
Okay. And I've heard rumors that there's games out there. Is that in the power bank, or is that like
There
a
are so
competition or
many
something?
there are so many games in the Power Bank. It is Yeah, it's great. So if you don't want to take your Game Boy with you or whatever else people are using, they use phones now, don't they? So you can yeah, you can just download games and have a play on your commute or something like that. There's games actually. They had a competition. I think it's kind of they submitted a game and they all reviewed the games, and I think Mr. Dang from Microsoft got involved. There's some other Microsoft people there, and they voted for the best one.
Nice. Which was the one you created, of course.
No.
No.
Unfortunately, I can't even draw a stick man, or I lack some creativity. So something I need to work on for next year is creativity.
Well, that's good. Well, good. Just as we're wrapping up here, and you mentioned sort of the new year and what's coming up, I think, what does that look like? So, for those interested in learning more, I think we'll put some, we'll definitely have some resources in the show notes, so check those out. But what other things are you excited about coming up in this next year? How are you going to continue to learn? I think you talked about Power BI. What's this next year like for you when it comes to the Power Platform?
So for me, I'm actually going to take a bit of a step change, and I'm going to still focus on the Power Platform and sort of grow my knowledge on Power Apps. As you said, I meant looked at Power BI, but I really want to do the got my eye on the Azure Fundamentals course. I want to do that exam, just because everything's underpinned by Azure, um, and I think it's something that I should know more about. So I think that's just going to be a nice little introduction to it, hopefully. So I'm going to try and aim for that one. What about yourself, Seth? Are you going to branch out into anything, or?
No, I'm going to go back to the Access days. It was easier. No, I think again with the evolution, I think it's great that you're going to the Azure thing. I think for me, it's getting to just to be at your level almost with the Power platform when it comes to the flow and to the Power Apps and being able to learn more about the canvas and specifically more of the model driven, because one of the things I've had an opportunity to do, and that's again why we started the Bacon Bites, was to help people that are coming from the CE background or the CRM background. How do they get up to speed on things? And so I think there's opportunity there. We have a lot of system administrators out there that have CE and have now CDM and CDS that they may not even realize it. And so how do we keep that um, population of developers and system administrators, how do we keep them up to speed? And so I think focusing on that and making sure that they're getting up to speed on sort of what we see as the new change when it comes to business applications. And so we'll be focusing on that, and then maybe next year I'll work on the Azure stuff. But I think you're right. I think the Azure stuff is just going to be it is fundamental, period. And so because it underpins everything, and so excited to see where that goes. So well, good, Jamie. Anything else before we jump off the Power Platform and into the new
Well,
year?
you mentioned Flow, Seth. So if you're going to learn about Flow, then check out Eliza Benitez's YouTube channel. It's got some great content on there, and starts from introduction to Flow, and I think she's starting to hit on to the more advanced stuff. So check that out.
I'll definitely I'll put that on my watch later list and make sure I subscribe to that. So
Yes, subscribe. We need 500, so Will Dorrington does some cooking or something. So the more people subscribe
okay,
to that, the better.
okay. 500's the goal right now, so we'll make sure to include her YouTube channel in the show notes, and make sure you go over there and click subscribe. And as you guys are starting to learn Flow. Well, Jamie, it's been awesome. I know the time zone and the holidays are coming up, so I appreciate you taking time and just connected on this. And as we get excited for what's sort of the evolution of the business applications and where it's going.